Welcome to the reading from Krishna book, the Rasa Dance Introduction, which is chapter 29. Some of the gopis were factually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their minds. They proved to be the greatest yogis, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart with faith and love is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. Actually, a yogi concentrates his mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu Tattvas. The gopis could not go to Krishna personally, so they began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. In the conditioned stage of the living entities, there are two kinds of results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as his result, and he who is engaged in pious activities has material enjoyments as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the enjoyer or sufferer is conditioned by material nature. The gopi associates of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were from different groups. Most of the gopis were eternal companions of Krishna, as stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinnamaya Ras Pratibha Vitabhihi. In the spiritual world, the associates of Krishna, especially the gopis, are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. They are expansions of Srimati Radharani, but when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna come, but also those who are being promoted to their status from this material world. The gopis who joined Krishna's pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. If they had been bound by fruitive action, they were fully freed from the reaction of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions, and their ecstasy of transcendental loving service for Krishna in his absence ended all their reactions to material pious activities. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death either by pious or sinful activities, but the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna transcended both positions and became purified, and thus elevated to the status of the gopis already expanded by their pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in the spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all their fruitive reactions of material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the three modes of material nature. Maharaj Parikshit heard Shukadev Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the Rasa dance. When he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all contamination of material birth and death, he said, "The gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and considered him to be their paramour. So how was it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour?" One should understand that here Krishna and ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living being part and parcel of Krishna are also Brahman, but Krishna is the supreme, Par Brahman. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material contaminated stage simply by thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking for someone? If one is thinking of a husband or son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then since all living entities are also Brahman, why are all those who thus thinking of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? This is a very intelligent question, because there are always atheists imitating Krishna. In these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Lord Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of blind followers of demoniac imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately it is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare to thinking. It is also warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayan or Krishna on the same level as the demigods is called Pashandi or rascal. On hearing this question from Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered even before this incident." Because Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clear up the situation, his spiritual master answered him very intelligently. "Why are you asking again about the same subject matter which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful?" A spiritual master is always in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way. Swami knew that Maharaj Parikshit asked the question not for his own understanding, but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna. Shukadev Goswami has then reminded Parikshit Maharaj about the salvation of Shishupal. Shishupal was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. But since Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, Shishupal gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then of the gopis. Who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love. There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends like the gopis can achieve such freedom and much more. Beside that, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is called Rishikesh. Shukadev Goswami also said that Krishna is Rishikesh, the super soul, whereas an ordinary man is a conditioned soul covered by the material body. Krishna and Krishna's body are the same because he is Rishikesh. A person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Rishikesh and Adokshaja. These two particular words have been used by Shukadev Goswami in this instance. Rishikesh is the super soul and Adokshaja is the supreme personality of Godhead. Transcendental to the material nature, just to show favor to the ordinary living beings, out of his causeless mercy he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and so they become eligible to go to hell. Shukadev Goswami continued to inform Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna is not an ordinary person, but rather the supreme personality of Godhead, imperishable, immeasurable, without any material qualities, but full of spiritual qualities. So qualitatively we are same as supreme personality of Godhead, but qualitatively we are hardly a spark. We are just the part and parcel of Lord Krishna. Our soul, sorry. He appears in this material world out of his causeless mercy, and whenever he appears as he is, without change. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says that He appears by His spiritual potency. He does not appear under the control of the material potency. The material potency is under His control. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the material potency is working under His superintendence. It is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the material potency known as Durga is acting as a shadow which moves the movement of the substance. So Durga Devi is helping Krishna to supervise this material potency or the material energy, which is this world. The conclusion is that if one somehow or other becomes attached to Krishna or attracted to him, either because of his qualities of beauty, opulence, fame, strength, renunciation, or knowledge, through affection or friendship, or even through lust, anger, or fear, then one's salvation and freedom from material contamination are assured. So Krishna has got all these 6 qualities unlimited, and we as human beings might have just a tiny spark of one or maybe more of these qualities in us. In the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, the Lord states that one who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness is very dear to Him. A preacher has to face many difficulties in his struggle to preach pure Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he has to suffer bodily injuries, and sometimes he has to suffer death also. All this is taken as a great austerity on behalf of Krishna. Krishna, therefore, the preacher is very, very dear to him. If Krishna's enemy can expect simply by concentrating their minds on him, then what to say of a devotee who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed in all circumstances. But such preachers never care for salvation, because factually one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness devotional service has already achieved salvation. Shukadev Goswami therefore assured King Parikshit that he should always rest assured that one who is attracted by Krishna attains liberation from material bondage, because Krishna is the transcendental master of all mystic power. When all the gopis assembled as described before Krishna, he began to speak. He began to speak on the highest elevated subject of philosophy, politics, economics, everything. And he also spoke before the gopis, who were so dear to him. He wanted to enchant them by word jugglery, and thus he began to speak as follows. O ladies of Vrindavan, Krishna said, you are very fortunate and you are very dear to me. I am very pleased that you have come here, and I hope everything is well in Vrindavan. Now please order me. What can I do for you? What is the purpose of you coming here in the dead of night? Kindly take your seats and let me know what I can do for you. The gopis had come to Krishna to enjoy his company, to dance with him, embrace him and kiss him, and when Krishna began to receive them very officially, showing all kinds of etiquette, they were surprised. He was treating them as ordinary society women. Therefore they began to smile among themselves, and though they were eagerly listening to Krishna talk in that way, they were surprised. Then Krishna began to instruct them, my dear friends, you must know that it is now the dead of night and the forest is very dangerous. At this time, all the ferocious jungle animals, the tigers, bears, jackals, and wolves are prowling in the forest. Therefore, it is very dangerous for you. However you go, wherever you go, you will find that all these animals are loitering to find their prey. I think, therefore, that you are taking a great risk in coming here in the dead of night. Please turn back immediately without delay." When he saw that they continued to smile, he said, "I very much appreciate your bodily features. All of you have nice, very thin waists." All the gopis were very exquisitely beautiful. They are described by the word somadhamya. The standard women is said to be sumadhyama when the middle portion of the body is slender. Krishna wanted to impress on them by that they were not old enough to take care of themselves. Actually, they required protection. It was not very wise of them to come in the dead of night to Krishna. Krishna also indicated that he was a young boy and they were young girls. It does not look very well for young girls and boys to remain together in the dead of night. After hearing this advice, the gopis did not seem very happy. Therefore, Krishna began to stress the point in a different way. "My dear friends, I can understand that you have left your homes without the permission of your guardians. Therefore, I think your mothers, your fathers, your elder brothers, and even your sons, and what to speak of your husbands, they must be very anxious to find you. As long as you are here, they must be searching in different places and their minds must be very agitated. So don't tarry. Go back and please make them peaceful." When the gopis appeared to be a little bit disturbed and angry from hearing the free advice of Krishna, they diverted their attention to looking at the beauty of the forest. At that time, the whole forest was illuminated by the bright shining of the moon, and the air was blowing very silently over the blooming flowers, and the green leaves of the trees were now moving in the breeze. Krishna took the opportunity of their looking at the forest to advise them. "I think you have come out to see the beautiful Vrindavan night," he said, "but you must now be satisfied. So return to your homes without delay. I understand that you are all very chaste women. So now that you have seen the beautiful atmosphere of the Vrindavan forest, please return home and engage in the faithful service of your respective husbands. Some of you must have babies by this time, although you are very young. You must have left your small babies at home and they must be crying. So immediately go back home and just feed them with your milk. I can also understand that you have very great affection for me, and out of transcendental affection you have come here, hearing me playing on my flute. Your feelings of love and affection for me are very appropriate because I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All living creatures are my parts and parcels, and naturally they are affectionate to me. So this affection for me is very welcome, and I congratulate you for this. Now you can go back to your homes. Another thing I must explain to you is that for a chaste woman, service to the husband without duplicity is the best religious principle. Not only should a woman be faithful and chaste to her husband, but she should also be affectionate to the friends of her husbands, obedient to the father and mother of her husband, and affectionate to the younger brothers of her husband. And most importantly, a woman must take care of her children. In this way, Krishna explained the duty of a woman to the gopis. He also stressed the point of serving the husband even if he is not very good character, or even if he is not very rich or fortunate, or even if he is old or invalid on account of continued diseases. Whatever her husband's condition, a woman should not divorce her husband if she actually desires to be elevated to the higher planetary system after leaving the body. So this is according to the Shastras. Besides that, it is considered abominable in society if a woman is unfaithful and goes searching for another man. Such habits will deter a woman from being elevated to the heavenly planets, and the result of such habits are very degrading. A married woman should not search for a paramour, for this is not sanctioned by the Vedic principles of life. If you think that you are very much attached to me and you want my association, I advise you not to personally try to enjoy me. It is better for you to go home, simply talk about me and think about me, and by this process of constantly remembering me and chanting my names, you will surely be elevated to the spiritual platform. There is no need to stand near me. Please go back home. So this is what Krishna advised gopis, and this is the same advice for us, that wherever we are, just by remembering Krishna and chanting his name, we can get elevated to the spiritual platform in due course of time. The instruction given herein by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the gopis was not at all sarcastic. Such instructions should be taken very seriously by all honest women. The chastity of women is specifically stressed here in the by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, this principle should be followed by any serious woman who wants to be elevated to a higher status of life. Krishna is the center of all affection for all living creatures. When this affection is developed for Krishna, then one surpasses and transcends all Vedic injunctions. This was possible for the gopis because they saw Krishna face to face. This is not possible for any woman or women in the conditioned state. Unfortunately, sometimes a rascal following the philosophy of monism or oneness very irresponsibly takes with the gopis, entice many innocent women and mislead them in the name of spiritual realization. As a warning, Lord Krishna has herein hinted that what was possible for the gopis is not possible for the ordinary women. Although a woman can actually be elevated by advanced Krishna consciousness, she should not be enticed by an impossible Krishna. So beware of the Sahajiyas who just pretend to be Krishna. There's only one Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living as Paramatma in our hearts, and who as Garbhodakshay Vishnu is in every atom of this world, of this universe, and who has created the whole of the cosmos as Mahavishnu, or the Karanadakshay Vishnu. So a woman should concentrate her devotional services, activities in chanting and meditating upon Krishna as is advised herein by Krishna to the gopis. One should not follow the men called Sahajiyas, the so-called devotees who take everything very lightly. When Krishna spoke in such a discouraging way to the gopis, they became very sad, for they thought their desire to enjoy the Rasa dance with Krishna would be frustrated. Thus they became full of anxiety. Out of great sadness, the gopis began to breathe very heavily. Instead of looking at Krishna face to face, they bowed their heads and looked at the ground, and they began to draw various types of curved lines on the ground with their toes. They were shedding heavy tears. Their cosmetic decorations were washed from their face. The water from their eyes mixed with the kunkuna fell onto the ground. They could not say anything to Krishna, but simply stood there silently. By their silence, they expressed their hearts were grievously wounded. The gopis were not ordinary women. In essence, they were on an equal level with Krishna. They are the eternal associates. As it is confirmed in Brahma Samhita, they are expansions of the pleasure potency of Krishna, and as his potency, they are not different from him. Although they were depressed by the words of Krishna, they did not like to use harsh words against him. Yet they wanted to rebuke Krishna for his unkind words, and therefore they began to speak in faltering voices. They did not like to use harsh words against Krishna because he was their dearmost, their heart and soul. The gopis had only Krishna in their hearts. They were completely surrendered and dedicated souls. Naturally, they had heard such unkind words. They tried to reply, but in the attempt, torrents of tears fell from their eyes. Finally, they managed to speak. Krishna, they said, you are very cruel. You should not talk like that. We are full-fledged, surrendered souls. Please accept us and don't talk in that cruel way. Of course, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and can do whatever you like, but it is not worthy of your position to treat us in such a cruel way. We have come to you leaving everything behind just to take shelter of your lotus feet. We know that you are completely independent and can do whatever you like. But we request you, don't reject us. We are your devotees. You should accept us as Lord Narayan accepts his devotees. There are many devotees of Lord Narayan who worship him for salvation and he awards them salvation. Similarly, how can you reject us when we have no shelter other than your lotus feet? Oh dear Krishna, they continued, you are the supreme instructor, there is no doubt about it. Your instructions to women to be faithful to their husbands and merciful to their children, to take care of household affairs, and to be obedient to the elderly of the family are surely just according to the tenets of the Shastras. But we know that one may perfectly observe all these instructions of the Shastra, and children are all very dear and pleasing to us only because of your presence. For you are the super souls of all living creatures. So the gopis are very nicely saying to Krishna that we are taking care of all our duties because Krishna, you are present as super soul in all the living creatures. The gopis are very highly elevated associates of Krishna, so they understand everything very nicely. When you leave, where I am, yeah. Without your presence, one is worthless. So without the super soul, our bodies are classed as dead. With the super soul in our heart, our soul is living. And when these two, super soul and soul, exit us, we are nothing. We are worthless. So without your presence, Krishna, one is worthless. The gopis are saying very nicely. When you leave the body immediately dies, and according to the injunction of the Shastras, a dead body must be immediately thrown into a river or burned. Therefore, ultimately, you are the dearmost personality in this world. By placing our faith and love in your personality, we are assured of never being bereft of husband, friends, sons or daughters. If a woman accepts you as the supreme husband, then she will never be bereft of her husbands, as in the bodily concept of life. If we accept you as your ultimate husband, then there is no question of being separated, divorced or widowed. You are the eternal husband. So this is the beautiful prayers gopis are saying to Krishna. You are the eternal husband, eternal son, eternal friend and eternal master, and one who enters into a relationship with you is eternally happy, since you are the teacher of all religious principles. Your lotus feet have to be worshipped first according to the Shastras. State Acharya Upasana, the worship of lotus feet is the first principle. Besides that, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, you are the only enjoyer, you are the only proprietor, and you are the only friend. As such, we have come to you leaving aside all so-called friends, society, and love, and now you have become our enjoyer. Let us be everlastingly enjoyed by you, be by our proprietor, for that is your natural claim. And be our supreme friend, for you are naturally so. Let us thus embrace you as the supreme beloved. And we will continue our reading from here onwards tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Take care, everyone.